Hi, my name is Evan Williams, and I am a customer success leader and advisor with Growth Molecules. In honor of Black History Month, this four-part interview series, Black Voices in Customer Success, will highlight accomplished leaders and executives in customer success. My guests have decades of experience and valuable insights to share. If you're interested in learning more about how to elevate your career in customer success, what are the traits of a great CSM, and insights from tech veterans, this is the series for you. All right. Hi, Sandy. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Evan.
I know that you have a long background in customer success, and I see that now you're at Stanford University working towards your MBA and also serving in the GSB Investor Fund. Would you mind telling me about your background and what's kind of led you to where you are today?
Yeah, of course. So I, in college, was actually really interested in healthcare from the provider perspective. So I was pre-med and was dead set on becoming a doctor. But I realized, as many people realize when they transition into tech, I didn't really understand anything about the healthcare system. So I decided to go to a tech company, Athena Health, and work on the customer facing side, running a product consulting team. So actually not customer success, but a little bit adjacent, helping hospital leaders really understand how to use our system and use it to the best of their ability to help with financial returns and general billing. And I loved it. I loved it more than I'd ever loved a pre-med class. And I was set on kind of staying on the customer facing side. I continued to pursue kind of working more closely with customers when I transitioned to a small startup at the time, Buoy Health in Boston, where I started their customer success team. So I was 4 years into my career, had worked with customers for a long time, but had never been kind of formally part of a CS team, had never been responsible for accounts. And I was suddenly now starting a team and building this foundation. And it was a wild and crazy experience, but truly when I look back, such a highlight of my career because I continue to understand how much I loved working with customers, loved making sure that they were seeing results with the products that they were using, but also solving the right problems when working with us. And it gave me kind of my first real touch of what like long-term leadership looks like in terms of team formation. And I just like loved that pivot that I made, and it made me really CS obsessed. I did that for 4 years and then had this moment where I was really thinking about kind of what is next. I've really enjoyed customer success. I could continue down this path, but I realized there were some skills that I wanted to work on. And I thought of kind of the many places I could go, and starting my MBA and really focusing on growing myself as a leader really aligned with that next step. And I'm happy to talk more about kind of my potential pivot into investing as well, because I'm really excited about that and how it ties into CS.
Yeah, it's amazing hearing, jumping back, that you are the first leader or trying to build a customer success team from scratch. I know how challenging that can be, not only having to be, the CSM, right? So I assume that there's a book of business that you're managing, but also trying to look at it from a leadership perspective as well, reporting on retention rates and, onboarding customers, those types of things. Can you tell me a little bit more about that experience? So what were some of the challenges there, and how did you approach that?
Definitely. So I think a lot of what you mentioned is exactly how I felt. So I came in, we were just starting to work on the B2B side. So just starting to establish a customer base. And the first thing that I went after was understanding this customer base as thoroughly as I could. So what were their needs? What were their problem points? Like, where were they looking to grow? How did that align with the product, but also services that we were providing? And then starting to build out essentially like a journey from like end to end of what does it mean to work with us? And I'm a big proponent of like iterating progress. So how do you make small improvements along the way? So I kind of built this like V1 map and said, this is how we're doing it today. I'm going to take the next quarter and we're going to really improve this first thing. And then we're going to really improve this second point. And just really trying to make the process better as we kept working with this customer base. So I think some of the first challenges that I faced was honestly, customer success felt very new to me. So I had an instinct for what I was supposed to be doing, which was this map, but everything else, like the fact that it was called a journey map, that was new. So what I did is, honestly, I just like scoured the web for a lot of it and started to form relationships. So I read a ton of books. I went to it was actually lovely because there was so much online content at the time. So I was able to go to conferences online and just hear from people that were further along in their customer success career around how were they approaching big problems. That's how I found the metrics that I was going to solve for. It's how I proposed different types of iterative plans to my leadership, who also were very new to this space because they were founders themselves. So I would say that, especially if you're starting early and you're working with a new space, new customers, and if you're new in role, go after the content, be ruthless in how you find out information, but also be ruthless in how you find other people. I formed a bunch of relationships along the way, even just cold call LinkedIn messages to get people's perspectives. And I found that to be incredibly helpful.
Yeah, we talk about how important it is to be resourceful as a CSM, and it sounds like you're the epitome of resourcefulness in that role, making sure that you exhausted every resource available to you, looking online, and the networking, right? Reaching out, and so many folks are willing to help out if you just ask.
Yes, I would definitely plus one that. And I know that now when people reach out to me, I've taken meetings from LinkedIn for new CS leaders. And I think that you should never avoid that opportunity, even if it feels a little bit uncomfortable to send that message. Most likely that person just wants to help.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that you also said that you took an iterative approach to building out the new processes and systems when you were building out this team. You hear folks sometimes refer to it as the crawl, walk, run, and you have to focus on not necessarily solving for everything immediately, but identifying and prioritizing what is it that we want to accomplish first, what does the V1, the MVP look like, and then building on that and iterating to continue to improve as you move forward.
Yes, I think the crawl, walk, run is a really nice way of referring to it. I used to call it, what is the biggest problem of today, or what will sink this ship? And so I would go after, if it was onboarding and that being a bottleneck early on, how do we really streamline that? And some of it was just creating materials or creating different ways to set client expectations early on. And some of it was also just making sure, especially as we scaled the company and brought in new leaders, that we were bringing in leaders for the right opportunities. So we brought on an onboarding leader, and he so greatly changed the way that we ran our onboarding that it improved the way that our implementations ran orders of magnitude. And so that was the first thing that we really tackled and then kept going forward with.
Yeah, that's so important, having the right people in those critical onboarding positions as well, right? You only get that one opportunity to make sure that the customer is set up for success right off the bat. You certainly can improve the experience later on, but it's so helpful if you get that right the first time.
I definitely agree.
So what would you say would be the biggest takeaway or the biggest key learning that you have from building that team?
Yeah, I would say, like any team, I think it's really important that you are, especially with hiring, thinking about people that embody the same characteristics that you see as being important for your team. So some of the things that I really looked for when I was building the team and building out that culture was all around finding really empathetic leaders. So people that were able to think critically, but also understand the needs of their customers. Resilience, especially with customer success, and we could probably talk about this all day, you're on a roller coaster with your customers, with your business strategy, with the market, your products, your services. And so having a team that is really resilient and able to just roll with the punches and continue to have a positive perspective, I found that goes so far, especially when you're working with your clients. And I think one of the last things is really people that are strategic. So I I'm biased because I've worked on the B2B side, but I feel like your business strategy is only as good as the strategy you have for your customers. And so you have to have a team that's really thinking about how are you problem solving along the way and how are you doing it as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I really thought about kind of those pillars when I was thinking about like, what do I need to bring to the table? And then I used those to find other people that would help me bring that mission forward.
So resilience and strategic sounds like some of those are some of the major qualities that you're looking for when you're building the team.
Yes.
So I'd like to talk more about your next move. So moving to working towards your MBA. Can you tell me a little bit about what inspired you to seek your advanced degree there, and what are your next goals and priorities?
Yeah. So I loved my time working in customer success at the startup that I was at. But I came to a point where I was looking at my skill set and wondering, are these the skills that I am really happy with? Are there any new skills that I want to work on? And if so, how am I going to work on those? I think it's always important to continue to assess yourself, like you assess your team, you assess your business. And I realized that there were just some like fundamental business skills that, because I'd been so like firmly in my lane, building out this team and kind of focusing on my core skill set, I felt like I didn't have some of the general business skills, like understanding kind of financial models or being able to kind of take a 10,000 plus look view at an entire business and say, is this successful? Are we moving in the right ways? I felt like I didn't have some of those skills, and I wanted to make sure that, especially as I continued my career, I wasn't losing the opportunity to improve myself in the ways that felt important to me. That, coupled with kind of some big questions I had around, do I want to stay moving forward in customer success and look at kind of subsequent roles and titles? Do I want to pivot into another area? Do I want to maybe even think about founding my own venture? Like, those were all questions that I had. And so business school felt like this great opportunity to, one, focus a bit more on building out my skill set, but also give myself the time to think about what this next step would be. And I'm almost 2 quarters in, and it's been fantastic. And one of the things that's helped me actually start to explore is, what is it like to be more on the investment side? So having worked as an operator for so long and having had this really great exposure to customer needs, specifically in the health tech space, I am so excited to think about investing. And I'm a healthcare investor on the Stanford GSB Impact Fund, where we look at kind of giving capital to really mission-oriented companies that are focusing on impact. And the fact that I'm able to try this out as I look for internships, as I potentially think about this pivot, given my CS background, one, it's been a privilege to be able to do so, but I also think that the fact that I came from customer success has given me so much just good experience when thinking about what are good teams supposed to look like, what are good business models, and are these teams focusing on the right problems for their customers? I've been surprised by how much customer success teaches you when you're thinking about, are they going to be able to scale? What are the major bottlenecks that they're going to have? These are all questions that we've thought about on the CS side, and it's been able to translate really nicely as I've been working as an investor. So I'm excited to see what that looks like moving forward, but really happy about the shift that I've made and taking these 2 years to focus on business school.
Has there been anything that you found out or learned looking at businesses from the investor side that might challenge or might have surprised you or might have challenged any of the views that you'd previously held in your, that you'd gotten in your working in your previous roles?
Yeah, I think one of the main things, and I don't know if this is something that surprised me, but I think we have a lot of hindsight as 2020. So the decisions that we make, we're always like, oh, that was a good decision because it led to X. It was a bad decision because it led to Y. As I've been working through some kind of early stage just like sourcing with these companies. But then even as part of my classes, I've had moments to reflect and realize that so much of what we do is based on the best decision you can make at the time. So as someone who likes to have process and someone who likes to, weigh a lot of things against each other, I think what I've actually learned is your gut and your practice response is often as valuable, if not sometimes more valuable than maybe the data that you have in the moment. And I would say that particularly for like early stage ventures. So I've been really impressed when I've looked at decisions that entrepreneurs have made early on in their careers. And I'll sit there and be like, would I have made that decision? I'm not sure. And I mean, the case exists because that decision was either incredibly successful or incredibly terrible and disastrous for the business. And that's just a gamble that you take. So I think some of this for me has been ironically kind of validating and saying that even as a CS leader, as you're building out your team, as you're figuring out a structure, like you're going to just have to trust yourself at times and trust that you are capable of making these decisions. And then if it works out, it works out. And if it doesn't, it was the luck of the draw.
I like that. All right, last question. If you could give yourself a piece of advice 10 years ago, what piece of advice would that be?
Oh, I love this question. I mean, I think I would tell myself to shoot for the stars. Like, don't hold back. This is actually advice that I've gotten from prior mentors, because I think this is something that like people of color, women can do in terms of fitting into spaces that may not feel like they were made for you. Like you're trying to adjust, you're trying to, work as well as you can in the space. And I would have told myself, like, be bold, take up as much space as you want and just go for it. Because what I've learned is that I have found surprising allies in the spaces I've been, and I've also been fortunate to be able to make some change in the areas that I've worked in. And part of that was just because I like took some chances and was bold. And my hope is, especially as that time goes on, like it feels less scary to be bold. So I would just tell myself, like, you got this, go for it, you can do it. And I would tell everyone else, like, go for it.
I love that. Yes. So raise your hand, don't be shy, be bold, and take up that space.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Sandy, thank you so much for your time. I had a great time talking to you.
Thanks, Evan.
All right. Take care.
Take care.